3 years ago, a man destroyed his entire life on purpose. He quit his job. He walked away from the only career he'd ever known. He stopped answering his phone. He even stopped talking to people he loved. And when his best friend finally found him and asked, "Why are you doing this to yourself?" Oh, he said something that didn't make sense. He said, "Because my cup was too full." Now that sounds insane, right? Too full. Most people feel empty, lost, stuck. But this man was terrified of being full. And what he discovered next will change the way you see your entire life. And if you like stories that hit you in the chest and make you see things differently, hit subscribe, ring the bell, and stick with me, because this one doesn't just explain why you feel stuck. It explains how to escape. His name was Daniel. Average guy, average life, average dreams. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't weak. In fact, from the outside, he was doing everything right. He woke up early. He worked hard. He paid his bills. He smiled when people expected him to smile. He said, "I'm good," even when he wasn't. And slowly, quietly, he started to suffocate. But here's the weird part. Nothing was actually wrong. He had a stable job. He had friends. He had a routine. And routines are supposed to feel safe. But safety has a dark side. Safety can become a cage. Every morning Daniel would wake up at exactly 6:30 a.m. Same alarm. Same sound. Same ceiling. Same feeling in his chest. That heavy, invisible weight. He couldn't explain it. Nothing dramatic had happened. No tragedy. No crisis. Just a slow, creeping numbness. Like his soul had fallen asleep and his body forgot to tell him. At work he'd stare at his screen. Hours would pass. Click. Scroll. Click. Scroll. Meetings. Emails. Conversations that meant nothing. And one day, he noticed something that scared him. He couldn't remember the last time he felt excited. Not happy. Not comfortable. Excited. That word felt foreign. Like a language he used to speak but forgot. And that's when the thoughts started, is this it? Not loudly. Not dramatically. Quietly. Like a whisper inside his own skull. Is this all there is? He tried to ignore it. Everyone feels like this sometimes, right? Everyone gets tired. Everyone gets bored. That's just life. That's what people told him. That's what he told himself. But the whisper didn't go away. It got louder. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. And Daniel became a master of pretending. He pretended he was fine. He pretended he cared. He pretended he wasn't slowly disappearing inside his own life. Until one night, something small happened. Something stupid. He was sitting alone, phone in his hand, scrolling, watching other people live, vacations, businesses, transformations, smiles that looked real. And suddenly, he felt it. Not sadness, not anger, emptiness, pure emptiness. And that terrified him more than anything. Because sadness means you still feel something. Anger means something still matters. But emptiness means you're fading. That night, he didn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling. Same life, same invisible cage. And for the first time, he asked himself a dangerous question. When did I stop becoming someone I wanted to be? Not someone others respected. Not someone others approved of. Someone he respected. He didn't have an answer. And that's when everything started to crack. The next morning, nothing looked different. Same alarm, same routine, same world, but something inside him had shifted. He started noticing things he'd never noticed before. The way people moved without thinking. The way conversations repeated themselves. The way everyone seemed trapped in invisible patterns, calling it normal. He saw coworkers who had been there for 20 years. Same desk, same jokes, same tired eyes, and suddenly he saw his future. It wasn't dramatic, it was quiet, predictable, safe. And it scared him more than death, because death happens once. This happened every day, and that's when Daniel made a decision that made no logical sense. He did nothing. At first, He just watched, observed, questioned. He started asking himself things he'd never asked before. Why do I do this? Why do I stay here? What am I afraid of? And the answers weren't comfortable. He wasn't staying because he loved it. He wasn't staying because it fulfilled him. He was staying because it was familiar. Because it was safe. Because leaving meant uncertainty, and uncertainty is terrifying. The human brain would rather stay in a familiar prison than risk an unfamiliar freedom. But once you see the prison, you can't unsee it. And Daniel couldn't unsee it. Days passed. Weeks passed. The feeling grew stronger. That invisible pressure in his chest. That quiet voice whispering, "This isn't you?" He tried distractions. Entertainment. Noise. Anything to drown it out. It didn't work. Because the voice wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from him. And then, one afternoon, something happened that changed everything. He met an old man. Not in a dramatic place. Not on a mountain. Not in some mystical temple. At a small, quiet coffee shop, the old man sat alone, calm, still, present. Daniel didn't know why, but something about him felt different. He wasn't rushed. He wasn't distracted. He wasn't trying to be anywhere else. He was just there, fully, and that was rare. They made eye contact. Just for a second, and the old man smiled. Not a polite smile. Not a forced smile, a knowing smile. Daniel felt exposed. Like the old man could see something he couldn't hide. Days later he saw him again. Same place. Same calm presence. Eventually curiosity won. Daniel sat near him. At first, they said nothing. Then the old man spoke. "You look tired." Not physically tired, soul tired. Daniel forced a laugh. "Just work?" The old man nodded. Like he'd heard that answer 1,000 times. Then he said something strange. "Your cup is full." Daniel frowned. "Full? I feel empty." The old man shook his head gently. "No. You feel stuck. That's different." Daniel didn't understand. And what the old man said next would shatter everything he thought he knew about himself. He said, "Come back tomorrow. I'll show you." Daniel almost didn't go. It sounded ridiculous. But something inside him needed answers. The next day he returned. The old man was waiting. He gestured for Daniel to sit. Then he took a cup. A simple, ordinary cup, and he started pouring tea into it. The tea rose slowly, calmly. It reached the top, and then he kept pouring. The tea overflowed, spilled onto the table, dripped onto the floor. Daniel immediately said, "Stop. It's full." The old man didn't stop. He kept pouring. Tea everywhere, mess, waste, chaos. Daniel grabbed his arm. "It's full. You can't pour more?" The old man finally stopped. Silence. Then he looked directly into Daniel's eyes and said quietly, "You are this cup?" Daniel froze. The old man continued, "You keep trying to add new meaning, new purpose, new excitement, but your cup is already full. Full of fear, full of habits, full of expectations that don't belong to you." Daniel didn't speak, because he knew it was true. The old man leaned closer. "You don't need to add more. You need to empty." That sentence hit harder than anything Daniel had ever heard. Empty. Not add, empty. Because here's the truth nobody tells you. You don't feel stuck because you lack motivation. You feel stuck because you're carrying too much that isn't yours. Old identities, old fears, old versions of yourself that no longer fit. And as long as your cup stays full of the past, there's no room for your future. Daniel sat there, silent, processing. His entire life, he believed the answer was more effort. More discipline, more pushing. But what if the answer wasn't more? What if the answer was less? Less pretending, less fear, less attachment to a life that didn't feel like his. The old man stood up, and before he left, he said one final thing. Most people never empty their cup. Because they confuse who they are with what they've collected. And then he walked away. Daniel never saw him again. But he never forgot him. Because in that moment, Daniel realized something terrifying. If he wanted a different life, he couldn't keep being the same person, and what he did next is something most people are too afraid to do.